Hey, hi, social media family. Being of whatsoever races, but then not necessarily being of whatever walks of life, factions of society, lifestyle preferences. And likewise, I say, or so to speak, and then some, that is greeting any visitors to my own personal channel and or chat room with that the greeting words of hey or hi. But then I will no longer employ the uses thereof or use that being of the greeting word of hello, whereas I will replace it with as in substituted for that being of another, as I have done or did with that of halo, much rather instead, though it sounds the same, but then it not only has two different spellings, but then likewise two different meanings. And whereas the reason, my purpose that I will not any longer be employing the uses thereof or use the greeting word of hello is after having read this one pamphlet or leaflet or whatever I have said. I speak correct, proper standard English grammar of the American dialect of some of such qualities and quantities or not. And as I think of it with that, my mass intention to try backtrack here, the reason on purpose is being, and also I can go on to follow and to continue for when that my person at last left off. So that so that in order that I myself can or could possibly, that myself being of my same person, can or could possibly finish up as incomplete a former previous or prior line of thought in that sense of word, was I would no longer employ the usages thereof or use the greeting word of hello or whatever I've said is being that because after having read this one leaflet or pamphlet was the author of some of such was saying in more words or less, regardless of whatever his affiliation or association may be with this or that or what he himself represents. Well, himself was literally actually some kind sort of type of a, how should I put it, Islamic Muslim or Muslim, but then that's irrelevant. What I'm trying to say though, and what you should focus your attention upon is that he was saying within this one leaflet or pamphlet that when one person says hello to another person, you're literally actually wishing a curse upon that other person or upon another individual, being that because the root word of that greeting word of hello is supposed to be literally actually that of hell, being which is that being of all the same to be translated to be defined as meaning a place of torment. So I will no longer be employing the uses there will use that particular greeting word. And so therefore, as I was saying in the very beginning, halo much rather than hello, and hey or hi, how are you all doing? Well, I hope everyone is doing at least okay, if not better yet to be said, all right. If not best of all to be said, to be feeling blessed and stressed, more blessed and stressed, or too blessed to possibly become or be stressed. You and yours are family, friends, and hopefully me and mine likewise as well, are all the same. Being of any members of my social media family, being of whatsoever races, but then not necessarily being of whatever walks of life, factions, or societal lifestyle preferences, being that because I myself cannot hang with some or anybody and everybody, or as in, be associated with the likes of some of such others, being of whom do not share that being of certain other or particular beliefs of mine. And because, like say, for example, I myself am no way supporting any LGBT community, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender community, being because it's blasphemy in accordance to my own beliefs, being of a religious, supernatural, spiritual format. And so, although my social media family may be of whatsoever races, like any visitors to my own personal channel in our chat room could possibly be in that same line of sense of word. But then, unlike any visitors to my own personal channel in our chat room who could possibly be likewise, I say likewise, not that my social media family would be likewise as well, all the same, but unlike any visitors to that then of my own personal channel in our chat room, although regardless they themselves can or could possibly be like any members of my social media family or whatsoever races, but then, you know, unlike any visitors to that being of my own personal channel on a chat room could possibly have become or be whatsoever, whatever walks of life, factions of society, or lifestyle preferences, any members of my social media family cannot have become or be that, which is to be possibly considered. And if any of them are, then just as long as they don't come off like some kind sort, some kind or some such sort of type of a negative internet troll, then we will not have any problem that could pose a threat to the very reason or purpose for that of my person having established an account with this one particular social media website address, as I myself am like any others who have made the decision to get an account with, likewise as well, all the same, an account holder thereof, you know. But then, if anybody that could pay a visit to my personal channel in our chat room could possibly be in disagreement or have a difference of opinion or views and opinions with anything being which I could possibly say within or in any of my social media broadcasts or videos, be it past, present, or future, then I would appreciate it if you were to employ the uses thereof or use discretion in addressing the issue. Otherwise, more likely, more often than not, from there I am, there's myself being there, my person is just going to tell you in more words or less, talk to the hand, because I'm not listening, I mean, you can catch more flies with honey than you can or could possibly with any vinegar. And if I have offended anybody in times past with any former, previous, or prior social media broadcasts or videos of mine, or any to be possibly considered in the past, then if I had gone about some of such means to express myself to, contradict my otherwise peaceful and or Christian character, whereas I'm supposed to represent that being of the family of God, or those being of whom are like me, being of the few who would be considered as real or true Christians, aka Protestants, compared to how I believe, and I'm sure others would agree with me, compared to how there are still others that would tend to differ, that the majority of most churchgoers, being of whatsoever or whatever religious denominations, are nothing but not just the worship, but the worstest of closet devil worshippers of some kinds or some such source or types, from the pools to the pulpits of the many different religious denominations, churches. Whereas, likewise, it can be said and stated for the record that the majority of churches or whatsoever, whatever religious denominations, are nothing but into devil worshiping, to complement the thought that the majority or most churchgoers or whatsoever, whatever religious denominations, are nothing more than not just of the worship, but of the worst cis of closet devil worshippers. Then, nevertheless, if I could possibly offend anybody at some or such a given moment in time, then, nevertheless, I would appreciate it if you were to possibly bring it to that been of my attention, in a way that would prove that you have become or be, like say, less unfriendly. Less. Sorry about that. Less. Yeah. I said that correct the first time. Prince P continued. My man compared how the Prince Dodger attempt to confuse my speech. That would prove to have become or be less unfriendly or less hostile compared to vice versa. Understand? And because if you come my way or come at me, like so, and where all you're doing is venting, where you're not respecting my personal channel in our chat room, and as you could possibly come off like some sort of such a type, some kind, some or such sort of type of a character being of whom is coming off as ever so negative, who could have me reflect upon the case or situation upon the conditions or rather extenuating circumstances, or who could possibly remind me of a proverbial neighbor from hell, or one of the dime a dozen public nuisance problem neighbors, being of whom could possibly be moonlighting themselves as negative internet trolls, crank callers, stalkers, and etc. Then I'm not going to give you much of an audience compared to if you were to, much rather instead respect my personal channel on the chat room. Whereas if anything, first of all, I'm going to silence your chat, and then second of all, I'm going to block you. And the majority, most people or persons being of whom I block, they themselves are blocked permanently. Compared on to the few being of whom I block, are blocked only temporarily. Whereas from there, I permit them to re-enter or to regain access within or in to, or like say, for that being in my chat room, or I permit them once again to become a participant of, or to get back on my channel, as well as permit them to once again re-enter my chat room and our comment section. So don't become or be a stranger otherwise, if you know what I mean. That will remind me of a party crasher or intruder or home invader, Then excuse me again. Because this is my domain, okay? I had established it for some such other reasons or purposes, and I would not approve of anybody attempting to make it a rather hostile environment or atmosphere. Understood? But anyway, though, you must respect my views and opinions. If I'm the sole owner of my own personal channel and or chat room, like anybody else that could possibly have become or be an account holder for that being of their own, get saved or get lost, understand what I'm saying? If you're just gonna be like coming off as ever so ignorant, insane, impolite, or stupid, sick, sadistic, and rude, then there are something like from hundreds to thousands to millions of other channels and our chat rooms and comments sections, being of which you yourself or anybody else for that matter can or could possibly pay a visit to. Okay? And don't kill the messenger. I'm just here to deliver. And hopefully with that much less usages of displeasures or profanity, much rather than instead of with that much more cuss words to simply say. And regardless of whether I were to speak upon one or a couple, few or four more subject matters, topics of discussions, different subject matters of given arguments to be discussed and or debated, be it a controversy or not. You understand what I'm saying? And with many different views and opinions to be associated with thereof, then I will like say, or how you say, make little or no time to be engaged in verbal arguments with anybody, being of whom's sole reason or purpose for paying a visit to my own personal channel and or chat room is to mainly or mostly attempt to change the format against my free will or without my permission or without my consent, and it's not happening. Okay. And now that I have gotten that being the preliminaries, the basic intro out of the way, then I would like to speak upon one subject matter or topic of discussion or give an argument to be debated. And as you all have noticed, in judging or witnessing the title to this one particular social media broadcast or video of mine, was I wish to address the issue of how Israeli racist, redneck, white, Jewish, or that being of their persons, of those among themselves, whereas they have demonstrated their own version of apartheid, being of which was practiced in South Africa before it was liberated by its own black citizens for that particular country or nation elsewhere. And whereas the white Jewish are employing the uses of methods, tactics, or techniques against Palestinian persons, being of which is that of the same or similar to what they had become subjected to experiencing when they were within or in those concentration camps or death camps, with the many different crematoriums and or gas chambers to be associated with some or such. And likewise, as well, all the same, as they had received so much inhumane mistreatment coming from the German Nazis during World War II upon the continent of Europe, when Hitler's blitzkrieg military of fascists, as well as the SS Gestapo police, had raided the Jewish ghettos upon the continent of Europe during World War II, up until the time that the military allies otherwise would liberate that continent from all that fascism. And here it is that the white Jewish have taken it upon themselves to come off as their former German or Aryan Nazi persecutors. And it's wrong. And whereas our own U.S. or American president is doing very little to resolve this issue, to go about the necessary business at hand, to inform the state of Israel, the white Jewish state of Israel, formerly called the country, the nation of Palestine, within the Middle East, that what it is doing is a barbaric, civil, and human rights violation offenses. Whereas the United Nations should be given an order to go there and establish peace or reestablish any kind of peace it may have had prior to then, before all these different clashes between the two different races of people. I mean, it's like ridiculous, All the same as our president-elect, our president of the USA, is dragging his butt or taking his own sweet time about seeing of matters in regard and reference to those being the dreamers of Mexican children across the border who have been placed within similar concentration camps or death camps, similar to that what Japanese Americans have become subjected to experiencing at the hands of the U.S. or American military during World War II, right here within our supposed so-called Democratic Republic or democracy of the USA, the United States of America. And it's wrong. It's wrong, President Joe Biden, for you to do little or nothing about that of the unrest, social unrest or conflicts of interest within the state of Israel for that of the Middle East. And you yourself must do something about this here, as well as you must do something about the crisis for the borders between the U.S. and Mexico or Mexico. You know, I mean, here it is, white, Jewish, Zionist, military personnel who are no better than their former persecutors of the German Aryan Nazis upon the continent of Europe during World War II, are bombing that of places of residences of the Palestinians, and even are bombing medical facilities of hospitals and clinics, and not only injuring grown adult persons in general and or at random, but children likewise. And that's wrong. That is totally, completely, absolutely wrong. Here it is, a race of people, of fake Jews, who have stolen the identity, culture, and lands of the real Jews, being of blacks. Whereas you would think that it's a compliment that they want to be like us, but here it is, they're coming off as their former persecutors of the German Aryan Nazis when they continue to inhumanely harass, intimidate, and or persecute or terrorize and or traumatize Palestinians within or in the state of Israel for the Middle East. It's ridiculously ignorant and insane of them. Similar to a proverbial neighbor from hell, public some problem neighbor, harassing, intimidating, persecuting, or torturing and or terrorizing, attempting to torture and terrorize a fellow neighbor, like what my neighbor attempts to do to me upon a daily and nightly basis. But then getting back to the original issue at hand, you know, I mean, I'm watching news stories left and right about this conflict of interest in the Middle East between two different races of peoples, or between the two different parties, and it just doesn't make any sense. No, it don't. You have got to do something about this, President Joe Biden. I mean, sure, I agree with supporting a democratic republic or democracy within the state of Israel and in the Middle East, but I don't approve of the fascist methods, tactics, or techniques that those in power there, racist, redneck, white, Jewish Zionists, are employing, being of the same misuse of powers of authority, be it politics or the military and etc., to go about violating the civil and human rights of still another race of people or other persons who are not like them, whereas they are committing that of civil and human rights violation offenses against others, being of the same that they had disapproved of when they were in those ghettos and concentration camps upon the continent of Europe during World War II that was up under Nazi occupation of the supposed so-called master race or of Aryans, not that all Germans were the likes of Nazis. And being of the same kind of harassment, intimidation, or persecution, or terrorism that was inflicted upon their person that they had become subjected to experiencing that had traumatized them likewise. I mean, if some of the most valiant of the white Jewish in the Russian province of Poland was putting up so much resistance with their resistant movement, paramilitary citizens against the Nazi blitzkrieg of Hitler's military and SS Gestapo police likewise being of fascism, then what would make them think that the Palestinian peoples or persons should not protest likewise against them if they're coming off like the very German or Aryan Nazis that had persecuted them in times past before the Allies, different military allies from different countries or nations otherwise had liberated the continent of Europe, as well as freed the POWs from those concentration camps, all the same as brought freedom or liberty to those different white Jewish ghettos back then. Now I'm going to leave you all with this here on this last note of interest to conclude some of these matters by saying, as I would usually do, our same is give an intro and then speak upon a subject matter or topic of discussion or give an argument to be debated with many different views and opinions to be associated with some and such. Then I'll conclude by mentioning that in regard to the gospel message of Christ's salvation plan. So I paraphrase it, not quote exactly by saying, if you have not gotten Christ as your own personal Lord and Savior, I would hope that you would think to do so now, while the blood is still running warm in your veins, by recognizing or realizing, however said, what he himself had done or did, or whatever I've said, by speaking correct, proper standard English grammar, American dialect, or some such quality and quantity or not, as I think of it with that in my mind's intention to try backtrack here with no purpose of being, and also like that I myself can or could possibly go on with the following, so I can finish up as incomplete a form of preach for prior line thought the saints were. Whereas he himself had went to that cross of Calvary, our Lord and Savior Christ, the Messiah delivered. So that none of us who would think to profess faith in him have to go to damn hell to become of the lost, damn human souls of the unsaved, unbelievers and unbelievers, to be tortured and terrorized by the devil and the demon forever. But if any of us, being of whatsoever race and whatever walks of life, profess faith in him, from there we become and be blessed in one regard or another, more ways than one. First and foremost, with his salvation, being of which is the only means of salvation by which any of us can or could possibly become or be citizens of the kingdom of heaven. Even while we're here, to be considered. Second of all, we'll be blessed with that of the blessings of his deliverance. But first, you have got to get the most important blessing, not just the much more important, but the most important blessing being of his salvation. Otherwise, you would not be eligible for any blessings, none whatsoever. But you have to profess faith in him while you're still in this world, not wait until you make that transition for the great beyond or hereafter, the afterlife otherwise, so that you would have the insurance policy of the blood sacrifice of our Lord and Savior Christ, the Messiah deliverer, being of his salvation that fulfills biblical prophecy, as there's none other name under heaven by which any can be saved, so that you can assemble with like-minded believers in God, as in Christians, aka Protestants, as citizens of the kingdom of heaven once you were to leave this world, and be in the presence of God and his angels otherwise. You all take care and be safe, be blessed, not stressed. Peace and love, joy and happiness. And I'll holler at you later. Until then, peace.